Hi, it's Mike again.
And I'm Bret.
And you're back with BretandMike.com. Hey, Bret, we're in section 2 now where we got to start talking about navigation of the Windows operating system.
Well, clearly we need to discuss this because it is different, right?
But it isn't going to help everybody if they can't see our screen. So here's what I'm going to do with Magic Pixie Dust. There you go. Now you're seeing our operating system.
Or Pixie Snap, as the case may be.
Pixie Snap, that'll work.
Pixie Snap, right?
So I'm going to hold this up just so everyone can see. This is my device here, and you'll notice that as I move my finger across here, behind us, you should see me moving back there.
Absolutely.
And Bret, you want to tell them what this device is?
It's just it's a Microsoft Surface Pro. It's running...
This is the original Surface Pro.
Yeah, the original Gen 1, and it is running Windows 8.1. It has been upgraded.
Great.
Yeah.
One of many great devices that are out there with touchscreen. And again, you don't have to use touchscreen. We'll show you mouse movements as well.
Yeah.
But generally, you saw here, lo and behold, I'm looking at that new start screen that's on the Windows 8 8.1 feature. And tell me what I'm seeing. I'm seeing lots of tiles, different sizes, different colors. I'm seeing, things are flipping, things are moving.
So it's not just your father's operating system, so to speak. There's been a move from icons to tiles. Some of these tiles may be live tiles, which means they pull data from the internet.
That's what we're seeing here. I'm seeing the financial numbers flip and turn. I'm seeing sports information. I'm seeing all kinds of cool stuff.
So it's sipping data from the internet to update those tiles to kind of bring information to you.
So this is pretty nice, but so these tiles are different sizes. Why are there different sizes, for one thing?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. My favorite reason is because, quite frankly, some users have geometric OCD. And they have to have specific columns.
I'm not pointing out anybody.
Well, like for instance, if you see here, you see how you got this opening?
But if it rhymes with et.
You see this opening right here?
Yes.
Okay, that's bad form.
It is bad form.
Now, the great thing about Windows 8.1 is that Microsoft's given you 4 total sizes of shapes.
What they don't know is that really is buggy. Go ahead. Show them how to fix it. Get it out of there.
Well, there's a couple ways you can do it, okay? So let me go ahead and swipe up from the bottom and hit Customize. If I wanted to, I could tap on a particular tile and change it that way. But let's go ahead, and I clicked on the PowerPoint icon. Now, PowerPoint here, that really is, I call it an icon. It's a tile, but it doesn't do anything. There's no live content that's being popped in there. So it's basically as functional as an icon is.
Now wait, before you do what you're about to do, because I know where you're going, instead of doing that one, we don't need that control panel or the calculator to be that size.
Well, but that's going to show off. That's going to change up my geometry, but I can certainly do that. Now, again, control panel is really just
control panel.
Yeah, it doesn't have any live data, so you're only going to get a 2-size selection, either medium or small. Now, I can make this small, and that will add to the geometry there. Now, I could also take this calculator. And you know what, let's say I don't even want this on here. I can actually unpin it from the start and make that go away. Now, unfortunately, I still have this problem where the shapes don't line up. So if I go in here and I resize this and I go to small, and then I'll have to take this and bring that over. Now I'm a little happier. I would be more happy if I could pull a few more icons over. But basically, that's some customization on those. But what about these big ones? What do you got there for us on the
Same thing here. Now the bigger tiles, again, they have sizes, and you'll find out by selecting that. I'm in customized mode. I can now resize this. But look at this, Bret. When I click on resize, I have 4 options now.
You do.
This is a difference from 8.1 or 8.0, which only had a couple options. Now I have up to 4.
Small, medium, wide, and husky.
And extra husky in some cases. So the reason you might want this, notice if I change to wide, I'm still going to get my live updates, my live tile, but I get smaller amounts of information.
So it basically pares down the information if it's go back to wide, or the full size, large, husky. Okay, now look, not only do you get that, but you get an expanded view of more of the, so it like dynamically changes to give you more data based upon.
And these apps, and later we'll talk about the difference between apps and applications, but these apps are written to know the size of that window and parse how much data that they're going to display through that.
And particularly if it's an app that has some sort of picture or something added to it, like for instance the one I just enlarged, you get much more of the shot in that.
Yep.
So it's really a way of creating your tiles in an array that makes sense for you as to how you digest that information.
And Brett showed you could do this by swiping up. I just clicked in the desktop to go back to desktop mode. But I can also do this just by clicking and holding, and I get the exact same option.
And it was kind of funny because you said clicking and holding while using your finger. The reality is you could do that with a mouse as well.
Very good
you
point.
bring the mouse, you hold down the left mouse button, and the customize will come up. So you have lots of options. But really, the thing that's exciting about this is you have customization on the start screen like you've never had before. When you look at Windows 7 and previous, that start button, not very customizable. You really had to know what you're doing.
One thing I love too, we'll click out here, we have these names on these things. These are group names, right? I have home, tools, Bret and Mike's news, travel, etc. And these are customizable too as well, right?
Yeah, you can absolutely arrange, create new groups, and name those groups whatever you want. Very quickly and easily, actually.
So when I click to go into customize mode, you can see I can actually insert a cursor, and I'm just going to call this news. We'll just call it Mike's News.
Well, yeah, since you don't let me use your tablet anymore after that one incident.
Exactly. So here are these groups. I've got travel group. I've got one just called name group because this hasn't been named yet, but if I want to, I could click.
It's called stuff. Stuff is good.
That's a very creative name. Now, what if I wanted to create my own group?
So you mean to create a new group?
New group.
I'm assuming all of these are your group.
These are all my groups.
If you want to create a new one, you grab a tile. In fact, I'll grab one out of stuff. Since stuff is kind of on, it's kind of a nondescript group. See how that bar appeared in the middle there?
So you're holding and dragging, and when you get between them, that bar appears, and that tells you you're about to make a new group.
Yes. So I'll get that bar, I'll release, and there's a new group right there that you can start and organize. And it's just one tile. It's kind of lonely. You probably want to drag a few more in there and then give it a name.
Or I don't want to mess up my device, so if I pull it back, the group just goes away.
I find that much more geometrically pleasing, so I'm glad you did that. Okay.
So it's real easy. And groups are important because you sometimes want to classify the tiles of the apps differently, not based on name or function. For example, you and I travel a lot as we go around and presenting. I have a travel group. I assume you have a travel group.
Absolutely.
What's in your travel group?
Now, the thing about that start screen, the start screen right here is
You're not answering my question about what's in your travel group?
I don't want to, well, it's kind of a, I'm very private about my travel group, but
I guarantee you have airline information in there.
I have my airline apps.
You have weather in there.
I have weather.
You might have some games in there.
Well, and my movies app, because I like to,
When we're out on the road, we like movies. I like to find restaurants nearby when you're going to have to eat, etc. So you can customize that yourself. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'd asked you a question. I just want to make sure we clarified that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what those groups are for. And you can name your group anything you want. You can actually put documents themselves. If you're working on a project, you can make a project group. And we'll talk about more of that when we talk about the
importance of groups really is that the start screen is not everything on your system. It's not. There's a whole other section called All Apps, which we'll get to in a second, that holds all of your programs. This start screen is what matters to you most, but over time, you'll add a lot of stuff to it, and you'll want to have some degree of organization, or otherwise it'll get unruly, and then you won't be able to find stuff.
Well, and navigating around, I'm worried about getting lost because there's an awful lot here. Is there some central point that I can go to that makes sure I kind of route back to where I should be?
You're talking about the Charms bar?
The Charms bar. Tell me about the Charms bar.
So the Charms bar, and we'll cover a bunch of different swipes, particularly on a touch screen. In this case, if I swipe in from the right-hand side, you get the Charms bar. Now, you can get this very easily by using the Windows key C or by moving your mouse to the upper right-hand corner of the screen. This will all make the Charms bar appear.
So let me go back here just to show I'm now in control of my mouse, and I move it into the upper right-hand corner, and lo and behold, the Charms bar comes up.
As if by magic.
Wow. Or you said I could do Windows C, which I did, and there it comes again.
Now, there's several charms in here, and we can talk about the others later, but the main thing there in the center is that start screen, or start button for the start screen. So no matter where you go in the operating system, that will get you back to the start.
If I'm 5 levels deep into my configuration setting and whatnot, I charm, go back to start, and bingo, I'm right back on that main
Absolutely.
page. Okay.
That's how it's meant to work.
Very cool. And I see devices, so we'll go through some of this later when we talk about some of the customization. Cool. Okay, so I'm looking here and I see a ton of great apps, but these aren't all my apps.
You are correct, sir. Now, In Windows 8, when you install the new application, it would just populate an icon in the start screen, and you'd have to whittle through and decide what you wanted to keep or what you didn't, like
it would populate
everything.
Every application you had on your program, it tried to put
the text file, the help file.
If you're like me, I'm a developer. I have Microsoft Visual Studio. There's like 29 mini apps in there, and suddenly my screen was just 6 miles wide and 5 miles deep with tiles.
It wasn't pretty.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But that's changed in 8.1. 8.1 looks and tries to find out what the most logical, popular apps that everyone needs, but where does it put all the rest of them?
All apps.
All apps. And how do I get to all apps?
Well, all apps you can get to, and actually it was a little less intuitive in Windows 8. Windows 8.1, it makes it a little bit easier. If you have a mouse, you can click kind of down the lower left-hand portion of your screen, and that'll give you a little white circle with a down arrow in it. So
I drag my mouse over. Oh, look at that.
Yep, so there it is. Now you can click on that to get to all apps, which I'll go ahead and do.
Okay.
And you'll notice on the all apps screen that the reverse is there now. It's a little white circle with an up arrow, and if I click that, bet you can guess where it's going to go. Back to the start screen.
Woo!
Now if you have a touch screen, which odds are soon you will, it's a simple swipe up to give you that all apps.
Now what's great about the all apps is not only do I have a listing, an alphabetical listing, but as Bret scrolls, you'll see that it's put logical groupings around it. All of my Office files are together.
Yep.
Here's my Camtasia program. I've got some Adobe programs, and they're logically grouped in there. But if I have so many apps, like I want to see the calculator, for example, but I don't want to have to dig through all that to find the calculator, what do I do?
Well, you have a couple options. If you have a touch screen, you can actually do a pinch feature and shrink them to alphabetical.
Ooh.
So that's one option you can do. The other option,
hit C and go to calculator.
You can hit C and go to calculator. The other option is you just type calculator.
So if I say C-A-L, look at that. As I type, it's just screening off the ones that don't match my criteria.
And it's important to note that you actually see two calculators. One is an app, one is an application.
Oh.
Yeah. And we'll cover that in section 4. So pick one of those if you want to go ahead and launch.
I'll go with that one.
And there you have, we have options. So we can do scientific.
Woo!
Do you know any? I don't know any.
Not at all.
And then we have converter that lets you do volume and
And this is fun because I can do temperature conversions, I can do energy conversions. So for my Canadian friends, if it's 25 degrees Celsius, that's 77 degrees Fahrenheit,
you can do
and
that.
vice versa.
But can you also do like minus? Wow, I just blew my mind. Okay.
Why would minus 40 be minus 40?
I have no idea. It's a miracle of modern science. All right, so that's just one example of how you get to an app. The other thing that I wanted to point out in the all app screen, because it's important that you guys understand this, again for section 4, is that on the left-hand side you will see all of the apps, and beyond that on the right you will see all the applications. So when we go back to that, just keep that in mind in section 4.
And you might be seeing us doing extra swipes and stuff. We're going to go through the swipes in just a few minutes just to make sure you understand them. But a couple more things that we want to clarify. So I've got all my apps are here. Nothing's hidden. I can get to it fast and easy. You showed a couple ways to do that.
Sure.
There's always multiple ways to find stuff.
There's always
I can also, just from the top screen, I can do the same thing.
Absolutely. And from the top screen, we'll talk about search later. But
search, yep. But it's all integrated in there.
Yes.
So I've got that, but I see this desktop here. And if I click on the desktop, this is going to take me to...
Oh my gosh, it's the desktop.
The desktop.
It's still there, folks. You can relax.
Everyone that freaked out that they like the old interface and they're scared of the new interface, the desktop's there. And in 8.1, I don't want you to do this. I just want you to know that you can do this. You can actually set it to boot directly into the desktop.
You can set it to boot directly to
Don't do it. You're going to miss so much, and you'll understand when we start talking about in-depth the start menu and customization, all that stuff. We're getting some of that now, but you'd miss all that cool activity. If you think about it, let me go back just for a second, because I forgot to mention this. We talk about the start menu itself. We used to have the start button, and then that would pop up and whatnot. And what did I have when I clicked on the start menu in older versions of Windows? I would have my programs, I'd have my documents,
yeah, you'd have the stuff that's pinned up there that we'd use most frequently.
My pinned up stuff most recently. But when I go to this start screen and I look, what do I see? I see my programs, I see my documents, I have all my control panel via the charms and other things. We'll show you more of that. Basically, Bret, Everything I had before in previous versions of Windows, I have now, but I would argue it's better to look at, it's more colorful, it's easier to interact with. I don't have to keep missing on those programs.
It pushes all that great data and information to you, and on top of that, and this is the part that gets me that a lot of people miss, is I hit desktop here, takes me to my desktop. I can still clutter the desktop with icons if I want to. I can still pin all of my favorite applications down below to the taskbar, as I always have. And, you know, in doing a bunch of studies on this, it's been shown that business users typically will pin those initial applications they use the most frequently to that taskbar, and they'll only go to the start button if they're doing something different. If they're on a lunch break and they want to surf the web or whatever.
And just to show people, let's go back to the all apps, and I'll just pick something that I don't have on my main one, like the media player, for example.
Well, actually, let's do.
I was just going to show right here. I have the option to pin to start, which is the start screen in the new modern UI, but I also have pin to taskbar. Yep. If I hit the pin to taskbar, what it's going to do is it's going to pin it to the taskbar that you saw on the desktop. If I go out, look, lo and behold, new icon's been added.
And if I hit it, I can set that up, etc. But we won't do that right now, so we'll close out of that. But there you have it. You have the option of pinning it to the start screen. You can pin it to the taskbar.
So with Windows 8 and 8.1, you don't lose anything. You still have the familiar environment that you used before, but you also have that new user interface that, like I said, preference-wise, I actually
And most importantly, in Windows 8.1, they put back the start button.
What?
They did.
It's there. This is cool, right?
Absolutely.
So if I hit this, it's just like the olden days. I just click on this and...
Yeah, not really.
It's a giant head fake. Basically.
It is a head fake. So basically, you hit that, it'll take you to the start screen. But honestly, it's not that different because if you think of it this way, the start screen is really the start button pre-pushed.
They're the same thing.
Yeah.
The only difference between the previous versions of Windows and Windows 8 and 8.1, Microsoft pushed the start button for you. Again, everything you had there before is still there now. It's just more colorful, more dynamic. However, that's not all with that start button. There's something else that you can do with that start button.
There's a couple things you can do with that start button.
Show them?
Well, my favorite thing, are you talking about the shortcuts?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, this is typically, well, we'll go ahead and show this. It's actually a function of the corner. It's like the bottom lower right pixel more so than the start button. But you can actually get to this by pressing and holding the lower left-hand corner, or if you happen to have a keyboard, which is how I primarily use it, you hit the Windows key X. Now, this is kind of a power user pop-up because it includes programs and features. It includes control panel access, command prompt with admin rights, file explorer, a whole bunch of tools. And with 8.1, they've added the ability to sign out or log off or shut down. So you actually have the capability.
Because it used to be you had to go back to the start menu, then you had to go into configuration. It was like a 3-button process. Now it's right there.
The other piece of this that I kind of like is the fact that this is a traditional Windows menu that's really more designed for a mouse and keyboard. And when you hit it, when you try to hit one of these with your fingertip, you'll understand why
they made that change.
They made that change where you have fingertip.
So we'll dive deeper in this when we talk about configuration. But when we said that the start button really doesn't do anything, it does have this feature in it. You can right-click and hold, and it'll pop up. You can Windows key X, as Brett pointed out, and pop it up. It's a faster, quicker, easier way of doing things. So you get your choice. You can use that modern UI interface if you like, or if you can use your standard desktop interface, it works exactly the same way.
Yeah, now we've covered off a couple of the swipes, right? We talked about the charms bar. We talked about the back and forth.
Yep.
We brought up, from the bottom, we brought up the customize. From swiping below in the blue field, we brought up all apps. But that isn't all the swipes, is it?
No. Let's take them through.
Okay.
We promise you in about 5 minutes you can learn everything you need to learn about the Windows 8.1 interface, what we're about to show you here. Is so fast. You don't need a book. You don't have to take training.
No.
You will be a seasoned expert. So let's dig in if we can. I'll run through this real quick. I'm going to, just so we have something to show, I'm going to pull up some applications here.
That's good.
I'm going to launch them real fast. Let's get the weather. Let's get whatever this is. Tom Hanks is up for an Oscar. Go Tom.
Go Tom.
And I'll pull up one more. How about sports?
Okay.
So I've got a bunch of applications running. The first swipe we're going to learn is swiping from the left-hand side. So if I was looking at the screen like this, I'm swiping this way.
Okay.
So you hit
now
Brett in the head.
Way to go. So you're swiping in from the left-hand side. What would that do?
Well, you tell me. What does this look like? Thinking about the older versions of Windows, when I do this, what does that look like? What would that be the equivalent of?
That's kind of like Alt-Tab.
It is just like Alt-Tab. It allows me to switch applications, and I was doing it slow, but just so you know, I can actually do this really, really fast.
Okay, now wait a second. You're making me change. So is Alt-Tab still there?
Good question. Let's find out. If I hold Alt and Tab, lo and behold, look what happens.
Oh, now the backgrounds are updating.
As I change the window, you'll see that it's actually showing me the application.
It
did not do that.
I didn't think it did that in Windows 7.
So it's even better than what they had before.
Yeah.
But some people really like to have it all up at once so they can see and make it jump.
Sure.
And the developers actually thought about this with Windows 8.1.
Yeah?
What'd they put in there?
Are you asking about the, well, I call it the reverse C.
I call it the inverted C.
Or the inverse C.
I change it every time.
Okay.
So let's show you what that is. I'm going to do this in slow motion first. So all I'm doing is I'm using my finger to drag in just like I'm swiping.
Yeah.
Notice I have an application now and I can move it around. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm going to go back in, so it's a swipe in, swipe out. And I could do this really, really fast. But when I do, there lists all of my applications. Just like I saw before, they're horizontally or vertically aligned versus horizontally. But I can jump right to whichever one I want.
Just pick one of those and jump right into it.
And to show you that it does work really fast, I can do it just that fast and that easy. Just grab it, swipe, and you're there.
It slices, dices, and makes rosebud wraps.
And I will admit, Brett showed me something I didn't know. You can do it upside down.
Absolutely.
I saw you do that last time. I didn't realize you could do that. But either way, swipe down, swipe up. It's going to work exactly the same way. And we did mention the fact about docking a window. I can take, for example, Tom Hanks here. When I pull him, notice things slide out of the way.
Yep.
I let it go. Now I've got side-by-side view.
So side-by-side view is actually something that's new to Windows 8.1. You didn't really have a side-by-side in Windows 8. It was kind of more of a 70-30 kind of thing.
Right.
So,
and the nice part is not only do they give you side-by-side, but it gives you customized side-by-side. So I can move this out or in or slide it left or right. Notice I can change the other sides.
So if Tom is more or less important than the weather, you've got a choice.
I can pick Tom up, move him to the other side if I so desire. I can move this all the way over, so I'm just looking at Tom like that. And it's smart in the way it handles apps. For example, a lot of you use Skype out there. I know I use Skype all the time.
Yep.
In previous versions, even in 8.0, if you got a call on Skype, believe it or not, when you hit to answer the call, it took up the entire screen and hit everything you were working on. So maybe you're in email and someone called.
Which would be fine if that were a video call, but if it's just text, if it's essentially instant messaging, you don't need all that real estate.
Or you can be in an email message, you click on a hyperlink, and boom, up comes the entire internet browser.
Yeah.
They've changed that now to be more smart. More smart, better smart, smarter.
Smarter.
Huh?
Yeah,
Very
there
good.
we go.
They changed it now, so when any of the applications come up, it'll be logical in thinking that it needs to split the screen. Skype will come up in the upper right-hand corner and sit there without hiding your deal. Hyperlinks will jump into the other side, and it even works with third-party applications. Non-Microsoft apps will do this as well. Much better, much faster. All right, so we're showing the 4 swipes. We showed this, which we said was Alt-Tab, right? You showed earlier, people might not have caught it, but if I'm in an app, and we'll talk about the difference, but you'll notice apps do not have a close button.
They don't have a close button, and this freaked a lot of people out.
A lot of people freaking out
because people are concerned. It's like, is this still running? Is it taking up resources?
Yep.
How do I get out of it?
Well, let me show you.
Yep.
You did this earlier, but I'm going to do it real slow. I'm going to grab from the top and drag down. Again, I have control over this, and when I drag it all the way to the bottom, it's closed.
Yep.
Okay.
So you close it out by swiping all the way down. Now also...
And you can do that really fast too, by the way. I did it slow, but just boom like that.
If you happen to be on a mouse and keyboard, if you move your mouse cursor to the very top of the screen, that cursor becomes a hand, and then you know that you have that application. You can grab it and pull it all the way down.
You saw it right there. The second it gets up there, it's a hand. Boom. And you'll notice it's not letting the mouse go beyond it, so it would be hard if you kept having to shoot for it and you missed. When you put that all the way up, it instantly turns to a hand. I can click and drag and pull down just the same way as before.
Now, we'll talk about, it's not particularly important that you close these out. We'll talk about that in section 4, but it's at least you know how to do it, right?
Very good. Brett already showed you the charms bar, so I swipe
That's
from
the right swipe?
Right swipe, which would be this way. Okay. And that's how I get to my charms. And Brett and I have a little bit different way of talking about charms. We'll get into that. But the final thing I want to show, let me pull up an app So I'll just pull up this financial one again. If I swipe from the bottom, what this allows me to do is it sets, this is how I explain it, sets the properties for the app I'm currently looking at. So for example, I'm looking at a financial app, I might want to look at my portfolio. Or if I'm looking at a sports app, I want to set my favorite teams or which groups I want to follow.
Kind of define the experience for you.
But it's app specific. Now you bring up the fact that you could do some of this from the charms bar as well. So if I go back here, you want to explain that?
So if I hit settings here, there's two pieces. You can see if I can touch this right here, you can see this line. Now the bottom section is persistent. It never changes no matter where you are. Your Wi-Fi, your audio, your screen, notifications, power, etc. Those all stay static no matter where you are. But the top portion is defined by what app you're in or where you're at. Like for instance, here you see personalization tiles help.
Because we're looking at the start screen.
We're looking at the start screen. If we go back to the desktop and bring this in and hit settings, notice the change. You have access to the control panel here. If we bring in an app like the Bing Finance and I go to settings, then you see information that's relating kind of to the exterior of that app, how you interact with it, as opposed to the swipe up, which you showed, which does the settings and things like that. So if you had to have a login or something like that, it would traditionally be found under settings or setting up your account details.
So the way I explain this is a swipe from the right is setting the properties for the computer itself or for how the app interfaces with the computer. You brought up a great example, like Zenio. If you're reading Zenio and have magazine subscriptions, you use the charms bar to go set the properties for how you subscribe Zenio to your magazine. And sign into
your account and things like that.
And sign into your account and everything. If you're in the app itself and you just want to do app-specific settings for the app, that's going to be the swipe from the bottom. So bottom is for the app. The charms bar and the swipe from the right is for setting the properties of the computer. And we'll talk more about this in the customization. Okay, is there anything we've forgotten in this section? We've covered quite a lot.
Well, we got all 4 swipes. Of course, the bottom swipe is close out the app. We talked about that, the side bottom and the left. We talked about the charms bar. We talked about the back and forth of navigation start screen.
How you find apps in the full app section. In case you get lost, you're going to go back to that home screen again and again. We showed the start button.
And not to panic, you have the desktop still. You can configure and set that up just as you always have. Pin apps to the taskbar. No sweat there. Everybody's hunky-dory with regard to that. We have a start button again that goes to the start screen, but, we'll take it.
We really want to now go into section 3 where we'll talk more about customization and taking it to that next level.
Yeah.